It's time now for the Kill the Can podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kill the Can podcast. I'm your host, Chewy. You want to quit nicotine and take back control of your life? We'll tell you how we've done it and answer the questions you didn't even know you had about how you can quit today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's just me today. I wanted to kind of relay a story that I just dealt with and kind of hopefully maybe get a conversation going, whether it's in the comments or some feedback or what have you. So the other day, as I'm prone to do, so I go through the website on a daily basis, and I will go back and I will repost content that has been posted on that particular day. So as I sit here and record, it is March the 22nd. So every day I will go through and I will look at content that has been posted to the site on March 22nd over the years. And I will kind of pick and choose, and I will repost some of it. I don't do it. I don't repost every single thing all the time for a variety of reasons. There are some things that were relevant back in the day when I posted them, or are no longer relevant today, or what have you. But so I posted, this is from a couple days ago, and I reposted an article, and the title of it was "Not So Fast on E-Cigarettes." And it was a article that was originally written or originally posted March 19th, 2014. So I reposted this on March 19th, 2023. And I reposted it to the Kill the Can Twitter account. And really all I did was I just, I posted the title of the article, which again is "Not So Fast on E-Cigarettes." And I reposted the link. And I kind of left it at that. This particular article was originally, I think, posted in the Boston Globe. And it was talking about the dangers of e-cigarettes and how they were exploding in people's mouths and those kind of things. Now, again, this article was posted originally in 2014. And I suppose in retrospect, maybe I should have either not reposted that, or at the very least said when I reposted it, let people know that I was reposting an article from several years ago. That being said, it cracks me up because some of the comments that I got in response to this particular article were really fascinating. And I see this a lot specifically on Twitter, but I see it a lot on Facebook and some other social media platforms as well, Instagram, TikTok. And the response that I get specifically from the pro-vaping crowd is really kind of fascinating to me. There's a guy in particular, and I won't specifically kind of call him out on the podcast. You can, if you want, you can go and look at my Twitter feed if you're interested in looking through it. But he is in his profile, he lists himself as a neurobiologist, and he's got 25 years in global health. And he's speaking about how evidence is always winning and those kind of things. Now, this guy, if you go and you scroll through his Twitter feed, he is clearly pro-vape. And I will say he's not the worst offender of this that I've seen, but he does try to back up what he says with a study or a link to a study or what have you. So I will give him that credit. But in his response to me, he tweeted an infographic about how teen nicotine vaping has dropped 50% in the last 3 years. And this is coming from a CDC and FDA National Youth Tobacco Survey. And I guess I will assume that his infographic is correct. I'll give him that benefit. I will say that I don't have a whole lot of confidence in some of the information that the CDC and the FDA puts out these days, especially after the last couple of years that we've dealt with from a pandemic standpoint. I'm not super high. My opinion of the CDC and the FDA is not super high these days, but that's neither here nor there. I guess the other thing that I would say about an infographic that tells me that teen vaping is down 50% in the last 3 years, when you're talking about a youth tobacco use survey, that assumes that everybody that answers the survey is being truthful. It assumes that those people that took the survey 3 years prior were also being truthful. So we'll put kind of some of those assumptions aside. And the tweet that really kind of interested me here was he said, ironically, big tobacco is now regulated. Very difficult for them to lie. But anti-nicotine and tobacco zealots like you are not regulated and can lie all you want to justify your existence. And then he says, fact check, U.S. teen nicotine vaping just dropped 50%, not exactly exploding. And this one, you know, I will admit that I was in a bit of a mood that morning and didn't really, you know, if this had caught me on a different day, I might not even have responded to it. But it kind of caught me. Again, I was grumpy that day, and it kind of caught me in a bad mood, and so I typically don't respond to trolls. And again, trolls is probably the wrong word, because I genuinely don't think that this guy is a troll. I think that he is so bought into his ideology that he truly believes what he is saying is accurate and what he is saying is the truth. And I truly believe that he is spreading this message for what he feels is a good cause and a good purpose. And I truly think that he is, in his mind, he's trying to help people. And so I will give him that credit. So my first response to him was a little bit cutting, and I said, whatever helps you sleep at night, your advice kills people vaping. Mine, nicotine free, helps people live longer. I said, I'm not the one justifying my existence. I'm proud to be a zealot that helps people. And this speaks to the message that we preach at Kill the Can and the importance of being nicotine free. And it touches on it touches the harm reduction conversation, and it touches the idea that vaping, or smokeless tobacco for that matter, is quote unquote safer than cigarettes, or than traditional cigarettes or traditional cigars or those kind of things. And this is an argument that comes up every now and then. And I've always kind of come down on the same side of this argument. I think I've been remarkably consistent throughout my quit and throughout the years when I talk about this, that being free from nicotine is better than being addicted to nicotine. Kind of period, full stop. What will typically happen is somebody will say, well, what about these benefits of nicotine? And my response to that has been, well, let's just say for argument's sake that there are benefits to nicotine. I'm of the opinion that the delivery method to get that nicotine is not worth it. We actually talked about this on the podcast, Monster EMT and myself. We talked about this. It's episode 5 of the podcast. If you want to go back and listen to it, we kind of delve into this topic a little bit on that podcast. Geez, I can't even talk. on that podcast as well. And this interaction, this tweet, and there was some other things kind of back and forth between myself and some other folks. And then I followed that up with, I said, do you really believe that big tobacco doesn't lie just because they're regulated, quote unquote? And then I said, tell me you're naive without telling me you're naive. And again, I'm kind of being a dick at that point, but I don't think, and I would hope that most people listening to this podcast would agree with me, I don't put any stock in what big tobacco has to say. I believe them less than I believe the CDC and the FDA combined. Big tobacco, make no mistake, they are out to sell product. They are out to addict people, and they recognize that the tide is turning and the public perception and the public acceptance of cigarettes and cigars has decreased pretty significantly over the last several decades, which is an awesome thing that the public is waking up. There's many more locations and bars and restaurants that you cannot smoke in. I live in Ohio, and Ohio is essentially a smoke-free state in public at this point. And big tobacco, when they look out and they look at that landscape, they need to understand, or I'm sure they understand, that in order for them to maintain their profits, which again is what they are all about, they needed to change their product offerings. And that's where you get things like vape and nicotine pouches and nicotine gums and those kind of things, in my opinion. Nicotine pouches specifically. I suppose you could make the argument that nicotine gum is a cessation aid, and that's why that was developed. Nicotine pouches, especially the products like On and Zyn and those kind of things, I don't think there's anybody that looks at those as a quit aid. Those are just an alternate delivery method to get nicotine into your system. And so again, I was thinking a lot about this conversation that I was having on Twitter, and I think ultimately I'm okay if somebody wants to call me a zealot about the message that we are sending about how nicotine-free existence, again, for us, for nicotine addicts, isn't or is the best way to go, then I'm okay with the label of being a zealot in that particular case. Again, keep in mind, we're not out there, or at least I'm not, we're not out there saying everybody must quit. You have to quit. We are there primarily when people want to quit. We say, hey, if you want to quit and you have found us, here's the way that you can quit. And here is the best method, in our opinion, to get and stay quit. And that method is to be 100% nicotine free. That includes smokeless tobacco. It includes cigarettes, cigars, pouches, gums, toothpicks, whatever it is. And again, that's kind of where this argument ends in my mind. If somebody wants to try to make the argument with me that vaping is safer than cigarettes, okay, vaping is. I won't even argue that point at this point, because I think it's pretty clear that there are so many carcinogens and chemicals in cigarettes that it would be really difficult to find something that is not healthier for you, right? But the argument that I would make is, okay, let's just say that vaping is safer than smoking cigarettes. Well, isn't not vaping safer than vaping? That's kind of where I come out. And the response to that argument that I get is, well, I can't quit. And if I can't quit, then if I am going to switch from cigarettes to vaping, that's going to save lives. And again, in the aggregate, that might be true. Switching to vaping from cigarettes may save lives. But I would argue that switching from cigarettes to nothing will save more lives than switching just to vape. And I cannot entertain the argument of I can't quit. I just will not entertain it. I know what I went through and how addicted I felt to smokeless tobacco. And I know people within the Kill the Can community that used far longer than I used and used far more frequently and far more nicotine than I used. And they were all able to quit. So the idea of quote unquote, I can't quit, to me, that's a bullshit excuse. Anybody can quit. Nicotine, when you're getting off of it, is not like getting off alcohol or getting off some of these other drugs where, like, if you are truly an alcoholic and you quit cold turkey from alcohol, that can actually kill you. I don't believe that is the case with the nicotine. In fact, I know it's not. And so the idea of I can't quit is just horseshit. A more accurate statement would be I don't want to go through the pain and suffering of quitting. Okay, that's fine. But be honest with yourselves and be honest with anybody else that you're telling. Don't say I can't quit, because that's just wrong. And so again, I just kind of wanted to chat with you today and kind of relay this story and share this with you, because it was something that really kind of made me think. And it was, again, specifically, it was this idea that I'm a anti-nicotine, anti-tobacco zealot. And after kind of mulling it over and thinking about it, I think at the end of the day, the reality is, yep, I'm okay with being a zealot in this case. I appreciate you spending some time with me here this afternoon. We'll talk to you soon, quitters. Have a good one.
Join us again next time for another edition of the Kill the Can podcast.